You glance at the clock. Just after midnight, somewhere over Southeast Asia, hundreds of people do what you have done 100 times before. They lean back in a darkened cabin, buckle in, and trust the quiet hum of a jet engine to carry them safely through the night. A routine red-eye from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing, 239 souls aboard, cruising toward another ordinary dawn. Then, in a narrow slice of airspace over the South China Sea, the trail goes cold. No mayday, no frantic calls, just a silent blip that fades from radar, and an ache that has stretched for years across oceans and families. This story involves real people and real loss, so what follows is handled with respect. Tonight, we are not chasing wild conspiracies. We are following the clearest signals in the static. The last radar returns, the silent turnback, the ghostly satellite handshakes, the fragments of wreckage that washed ashore thousands of kilometers away. As we count down from number 10 to the single most powerful clue at number 1, ask yourself, at what point do these separate pieces stop being coincidence and start to sketch the outline of what really happened to MH370? Number 10. The routine takeoff. That wasn't. Picture the scene inside Kuala Lumpur International Airport in the early hours of March 8, 2014. Fluorescent lights buzz softly over sleepy travelers. Check-in counters flicker with boarding calls. At Gate C1, Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370, a Boeing 777-200ER bound for Beijing, prepares for an ordinary 5.5-hour flight. Families shuffle down the jet bridge. Business travelers scan emails. Cabin crew move with practiced choreography, every gesture designed to reassure you that this is just another night above the clouds. At 12:42 a.m. local time, MH370 lifts off from Kuala Lumpur, climbing into the darkness toward its planned cruising altitude. The flight plan is routine. Head northeast over the South China Sea, cross Vietnamese airspace, and descend into Beijing after sunrise. The aircraft is modern, well-regarded, and flown by an experienced crew. On paper, nothing about this departure looks unusual. There are no storms in the immediate path, no distress reported on the ground. In those first moments, the story of MH370 is indistinguishable from thousands of safe flights that night. Yet this apparent normalcy is precisely what makes this opening chapter so unsettling. When something goes wrong in aviation, there is usually a ripple of warning, a maintenance issue, a weather system, a tense radio call. Here, the logs show a standard pushback, a routine climb, and then silence waiting just off stage. The human brain hates this kind of ambiguity. We want a crack in the surface, an early hint that tells us, here, this is where the story broke. Instead, the beginning of MH370 looks like every other safe flight, which makes what follows feel like a trapdoor under a familiar floor. That is why this moment sits at number 10. It is not the most dramatic clue, but it is the foundation. The reminder that this mystery did not begin with chaos, but with the illusion of total normalcy that makes the disappearance so psychologically jarring. Number 9. The last calm words. About 38 minutes after takeoff, MH370 cruises at 35,000 feet, crossing from Malaysian to Vietnamese airspace. In the cockpit, the radios crackle with routine handovers. At 1:19 a.m. local time, Malaysian Air Traffic Control tells the crew to contact Ho Chi Minh. The reply comes in a calm, measured voice from the cockpit. "Good night, Malaysian 370," or words to that effect, depending on the transcript. Then, the frequency falls quiet. If you were listening live, nothing in that farewell would raise an eyebrow. It sounds like procedure. No tension, no urgency. You would not know it was the last confirmed voice transmission anyone would ever hear from MH370. Within minutes, the aircraft's transponder, which broadcasts its identity and altitude, stops sending signals. To civilian radar, the jet simply vanishes. There is no mayday, no coded squawk, no call reporting smoke, fire, or hijacking. Just a routine goodbye hanging in the air like an echo. This tiny sliver of audio matters because it forces us to confront a disturbing paradox. Either whatever happened next unfolded so quickly the crew never had time to call for help, or someone deliberately chose not to call. Our minds instinctively reach for patterns, for narratives that align with past disasters, but MH370 refuses to cooperate. Was the calm voice a sign that nothing was wrong yet? Or a mask, worn by someone who already knew the night was taking a darker turn? At this stage in the story, investigators did not know that military radar had tracked a dramatic change in course after this final transmission. They had a lost contact, a missing transponder, and a hauntingly ordinary goodbye. This clue alone does not tell us what happened, but it anchors a vital pivot point in time. 119, where routine ends and anomaly begins. It ranks at number 9 because, while it sets the emotional tone and suggests a deliberate or sudden break, its meaning only becomes clearer when combined with the more technical clues that appear later in the countdown. Number 8. The Vanishing Transponder. Now imagine you're in an air traffic control room, eyes moving between glowing radar sweeps. Commercial aircraft appear as labeled symbols, each tagged with altitude, heading, and call sign. MH370 is one of them, until it is not. Somewhere around 1:21, just after that last calm radio exchange, MH370's transponder ceases to reply. On civilian radar, the data-rich tag disappears, leaving, if anything at all, only a primary radar echo, a faint reflection of something metallic moving through the sky. Transponders do not simply drift offline like a Wi-Fi signal. They can fail due to technical issues, but they can also be manually switched to standby or off. The timing is chilling. Within minutes of handover to the next control center, the aircraft effectively becomes anonymous. No distress call accompanies this loss. No explanation follows. It is as if someone turned off the plane's name tag and kept flying into the dark. For investigators, this was a turning point that shifted MH370 from a possible accident into something more complex. A sudden catastrophic event, like a mid-air breakup, usually leaves debris and mayday calls in its wake, not a controlled-looking disappearance from secondary radar followed by hours of flight implied later by other data. The human mind tends to assume intent when randomness feels too ordered, and the coinciding of the transponder loss with the airspace handover feeds that instinct. Was someone trying to slip through a gap between jurisdictions? Or was an electrical failure cascading silently through the avionics? At this stage, the public still believed the plane had vanished somewhere along its planned route to Beijing. The missing transponder added a layer of unease, but not yet the full picture. That would come when previously unpublished radar data revealed that MH370 had not stopped flying at all. It had turned. This clue sits at number 8 because, standing alone, it is ambiguous, technical failure or deliberate action. But its timing and consequences make it one of the earliest signs that MH370's fate would not fit any simple template. Number 7. The secret turnback over the peninsula. For hours after contact was lost, surface and air searches focused on the South China Sea along MH370's planned route. But in the days that followed, something startling emerged from Malaysian military radar. MH370 had not continued toward Beijing. Instead, radar suggested the aircraft made a sweeping turn back over the Malay Peninsula, crossed back over the country, then headed northwest toward the Andaman Sea. Imagine that flight path from above. A glowing arc toward Vietnam, a pivot, then a long track across the night sky, almost as if the plane were retracing its steps before striking off toward a remote corridor of airspace. This was not the random scatter of debris. It was a coherent route, one that appeared to exploit gaps in civilian radar coverage. To many observers, this looked less like a mechanical accident and more like controlled flight. The psychological impact of this revelation was enormous. Until this point, many hoped MH370 had suffered a tragic but straightforward failure near its last known position. The idea that the aircraft had flown on, apparently under control, for an extended period pulled the story into a darker, more disturbing light. It invited questions that cut directly against our desire for quick closure. Who was flying? Why turn back without telling anyone? Why head toward a region with sparse radar coverage? Official investigations considered multiple scenarios to explain this maneuver, including hijacking, crew incapacitation following some event, or deliberate action from within the cockpit. None could be conclusively proven. This uncertainty triggers what psychologists call ambiguity aversion, the discomfort that drives us to latch onto any theory, however fragile, rather than sit with, "We don't know." This turnback ranks at number 7 because it transforms MH370 from a sudden disappearance into a prolonged, intentional-looking journey. But it is still a mid-level clue because the direction of the flight after leaving local radar would only become evident once investigators turned to a more indirect witness, a satellite orbiting high above the Indian Ocean. Number 6. The ghostly satellite handshakes. When MH370 dropped off radar, one might assume that all contact with the outside world ended. In reality, a lonely digital trail remained. The aircraft's satellite data unit, which communicated with Inmarsat's satellite network, left behind a series of automated handshakes, brief exchanges that showed the plane was still powered and exchanging signals for hours after conventional tracking was lost. These were not voice calls or position reports. Think of them as heartbeat pings, the aircraft checking in with a satellite thousands of kilometers above, saying, in effect, "I'm still here," without saying where "here" is in any straightforward way. Engineers at Inmarsat and investigators pored over the timing and frequency shifts of these signals, known as burst timing offset and burst frequency offset, to infer the plane's distance from the satellite and its relative motion. What they found was extraordinary. The ping suggested MH370 followed one of two broad arcs, one heading north into Central Asia and one heading south into the remote Indian Ocean. Further analysis of the Doppler shifts in the signal, combined with performance models of the Boeing 777, led Inmarsat and the Australian Transport Safety Bureau to conclude that the southern route was by far the more likely. Here, the story shifts from human senses to invisible math. The idea that a missing airliner's path could be reconstructed from subtle changes in radio frequency feels almost like forensic astronomy. Our pattern-seeking minds want something concrete, a photograph, a radar plot. But instead, we get rings of probability on a map of open ocean. This disconnect gave room for doubt and alternative theories, especially early on. But over time, the consistency of the satellite data analysis built a powerful case. MH370 flew on for roughly 7 hours and almost certainly ended in the southern Indian Ocean when its fuel ran out. These handshakes rank at number 6 because they extended the life of the flight in the minds of investigators and redirected the search thousands of kilometers away from the original focus. They are crucial, but still abstract. A technical backbone that would later be reinforced by something far more tangible: physical pieces of the aircraft itself. Number 5. The shift to the southern Indian Ocean. Once the satellite analysis pointed south, the entire search effort had to pivot. The South China Sea gave way to one of the most remote stretches of water on Earth, the southern Indian Ocean, southwest of Australia. Governments retasked aircraft, ships, and underwater vehicles to comb an area of sea so vast that even the word ocean feels too small. The Australian Maritime Safety Authority, and later the Australian Transport Safety Bureau, coordinated a multinational search effort over an area covering tens of thousands of square kilometers. Imagine flying low over gray-green waves for hours, looking for anything that does not belong. Crews battled fatigue and harsh conditions, chasing fleeting radar hits and satellite imagery. On March 24, 2014, Malaysian authorities publicly announced that MH370's flight had ended in the southern Indian Ocean based on this new analysis and the lack of any evidence that the plane had landed anywhere else. For families, this statement brought a cruel combination of closure and disbelief. There was still no wreckage, no black box, just a conclusion drawn from patterns in radio waves and the absence of alternatives. Psychologically, this was one of the hardest shifts to accept. Humans trust what they can see and touch, not invisible calculations about orbits and Doppler shifts. Many relatives found it unbearable to accept that their loved ones were gone without a single confirmed piece of debris. The lack of visible proof fueled alternative theories, some plausible, some deeply speculative, as people tried to fill the void left by the missing wreckage. Yet this pivot south was not made lightly. It rested on detailed engineering work cross-checked by independent experts, and it aligned with fuel endurance estimates for the Boeing 777. Still, without something physical to anchor it, this massive search area felt like chasing a shadow. That is why this turning point sits at number 5. It represents a bold, evidence-driven decision that reshaped the hunt, but it needed later discoveries to truly harden into conviction. Number 4. The first confirmed debris. More than a year after MH370 vanished on July 29, 2015, a piece of aircraft wreckage washed up on a beach on Reunion Island in the western Indian Ocean. It was a flaperon, the hinged part of the wing used during takeoff and landing, later confirmed by French and Malaysian authorities to be from MH370. For the first time, the missing flight was not just numbers on a screen or lines on a map. It was a tangible object you could touch, weathered by months at sea. In the months that followed, more debris, strongly believed or confirmed to be from MH370, appeared on beaches along the western Indian Ocean, including parts of Africa and nearby islands. Wing components, interior panel fragments, and other pieces gave investigators new data points. Oceanographers used these discoveries to refine drift models, effectively running time backward through currents and winds to estimate where the main wreckage likely lay. For families and the public, these fragments were emotionally complex. On one hand, they were heartbreaking confirmation that the aircraft had broken up in the ocean. On the other, they validated the broad conclusion that MH370 had ended in the southern Indian Ocean, lending weight to the earlier satellite-based analysis. The ocean had been holding its secrets, but not forever. The debris also narrowed the field of plausible theories. Claims that the plane had secretly landed intact in some distant location became far harder to sustain in the face of physically verified wreckage consistent with a high-speed impact at sea. Yet even here, ambiguity creeps in. The condition of the flaperon and other parts can hint at impact dynamics, but cannot definitively reconstruct the final maneuvers. Our minds want that last frame of the story, the exact angle, the final seconds in the cockpit. But the debris only whispers partial answers. This first confirmed debris ranks at number 4 because it transformed MH370 from an entirely invisible mystery into a concrete, physical event, and strongly reinforced the Southern Indian Ocean scenario. But it still does not tell us why the aircraft went there, or what happened on board in those final hours. Number 3. The vast but fruitless underwater search. With the likely crash region narrowed, attention turned beneath the waves. From late 2014 onward, specialized vessels equipped with side-scan sonar, deep tow systems, and autonomous underwater vehicles swept the seafloor over an area of about 120,000 square kilometers, roughly the size of a small country. The terrain there is rugged, with deep trenches, underwater mountains, and complex geology that can hide or distort sonar returns. Visualize a ship creeping slowly back and forth across a grid in the middle of nowhere, towing sonar fish that map the seabed line by painstaking line. Operators scrutinize grayscale images for anything that looks man-made: a straight edge, a metallic reflection, an unnatural shape against the sediment. Despite years of effort, the main wreckage of MH370 was not found within the initial high-priority search zone. In January 2017, the tripartite search by Australia, Malaysia, and China was suspended. A later privately funded search also ended without success. This absence of a find might seem like an argument against the Southern Indian Ocean scenario, but the ocean does not cooperate with intuition. The search area, while huge and scientifically informed, was still only a subset of all plausible locations. Subsequent analysis by groups such as CSIRO, using oceanographic modeling and satellite imagery showing probably man-made objects in March 2014, suggested that the most likely crash site might lie just outside the main searched area. Psychologically, the fruitless search is devastating. People tend to equate effort with certainty. If we tried this hard, we should have an answer. When reality refuses to reward that effort, frustration and suspicion grow. Some see the lack of wreckage as evidence of deeper plots, even when science offers a more mundane explanation. The seafloor is vast, complex, and still largely unmapped. This chapter ranks at number 3 because it underscores both how close and how far investigators may have been. The underwater search carved away huge swaths of possibility, but in doing so, it also sharpened the remaining question. If not there, then where along that lonely arc did MH370 finally meet the sea? Number 2, the leading but unproven scenario. Over the years, official investigations have evaluated a range of possible causes: sudden mechanical failure, onboard fire, hijacking, crew incapacitation, and deliberate action. No single scenario can be declared conclusively proven, but some have gathered more weight than others. The Australian Transport Safety Bureau noted that, based on the available evidence and flight path analysis, one leading hypothesis involved a long period of flight followed by fuel exhaustion and an unpiloted or partially controlled descent into the ocean. Other experts and commentators in various forums and media have suggested that deliberate action from within the cockpit could explain the initial turnback and loss of communications, though this remains unproven and controversial. It is important to stress there has been no court finding, no universally accepted official conclusion pinpointing a single person or act as definitively responsible. Investigators did examine crew backgrounds, passenger manifests, and cargo for potential motives or security threats, but publicly available reports have not produced a clear, evidenced motive that commands consensus. Our pattern-hungry minds want a simple culprit, a failed part, a villain, a clear accident. Instead, MH370 sits in a gray zone where multiple scenarios can fit parts of the puzzle, but none lock every piece into place. This ambiguity tests our cognitive biases. Faced with incomplete data, people often cling to the explanation that feels most narratively satisfying, even if the evidence is thin. Some are drawn to mechanical explanations because they absolve individuals and fit a narrative of tragic malfunction. Others lean toward intentional scenarios because they seem to explain the turnback and transponder loss. Still, others adopt elaborate conspiracies that are not supported by credible evidence, partly because they offer a sense of secret order behind the chaos. In weighing the evidence, official investigations have generally favored non-landing scenarios ending in the southern Indian Ocean, likely after fuel exhaustion, informed by satellite data, performance models, and debris findings. But they have stopped short of naming a definitive, proven cause. That restraint is crucial. It reminds us that scientific and investigative integrity sometimes means living with most likely instead of certain. This sits at number 2 because it represents where the weight of evidence tentatively points, but also where ethical limits demand caution. To move beyond this, to our number 1, we step away from technical analysis and confront the core of why MH370 still lives in the world's imagination: the human need for answers and the pain of their absence. Number 1. The enduring human void. Close your eyes and imagine a departure board that never updates. Next to MH370, there is no landed, no arrival gate, no carousel number, just a time, a destination, and then a blank that has stretched on for years. For the families of the 227 passengers and 12 crew, this is not an abstract mystery. It is a daily, living question that reaches into every phone that does not ring, every chair that stays empty at family gatherings. What ranks at number 1 is not a piece of metal, a radar trace, or a line on a map. It is the unresolved absence that all those clues have failed to fully fill. MH370 is widely regarded as one of the greatest mysteries in aviation history, precisely because it defies the pattern we rely on to feel safe: accident, investigation, explanation, reform. Instead, we have accident, investigation, partial reconstruction, and a lingering gap where motive and final moments should be. For relatives, that gap has practical consequences: legal processes, compensation, the ability to memorialize a loss that is still, in some ways, officially missing. But it also has psychological weight. Without a clear narrative, grief can become stuck, looping endlessly through what if and why. The same ambiguity that drives the public's fascination can trap loved ones in a cycle that never fully settles. Some have become advocates for renewed searches, pressing governments and private companies to act on updated analysis and emerging proposals to resume work in the Indian Ocean. On a broader level, MH370 changed how the world thinks about tracking aircraft. It exposed gaps in surveillance over oceans and accelerated discussions and initiatives about improving real-time tracking of commercial flights, so that a jet cannot simply slip beyond secondary radar and vanish into procedural gray zones. That is a technical legacy, but also a moral one, a global promise, however imperfect, to learn from loss. This enduring human void is number 1 because it gives meaning to every other clue in this countdown. Without the people on board, their lives, families, and futures, MH370 would be a curious technical puzzle. With them, it becomes a story about how much uncertainty a society can bear and how far we are willing to go to bring even a fraction of truth back from the edge of the map. Conclusion. When you step back from the data, the timestamps, the pings, the drift models, What remains is a simple image, a night flight that never saw morning, and a world still trying to make sense of that silence. Each point in this countdown, from the last calm words to the debris on distant shores, brings us closer to a probable path, but not to an absolute answer. In that gap, you can feel both the progress of science and the limits of what we can know when the ocean keeps its secrets. If you have watched this far, you're part of that search. Not in a physical sense, but in the shared refusal to reduce 239 lives to a footnote. Which lead feels strongest to you, and why? Do the satellite arcs convince you, or does the unexplored seafloor weigh more heavily on your mind? Share your thoughts in the comments, but keep them compassionate. Behind every theory is someone's family still listening. If this deep dive into MH370's unanswered questions resonated with you, tap like, subscribe to Top 10 Gama, and turn on notifications. That way, you will be with us when we tackle the next mystery. Another moment when the ordinary world suddenly cracks, and we follow the evidence wherever it leads.